So here we are again. We are back in lockdown, or we are in a couple of days' time in the UK, which is just, yay, fantastic news. There is yet another third and fourth lockdown grant on the horizon for self-employed people. Today I'm going to do my best to take you through what that means for your small business. Hiya folks, welcome back to the Small Business Toolbox. I'm Andy Mack and I've been self-employed for ages and ages and ages, and over the course of the last few months we've been tracking what's been going on with these self-employment lockdown grants that you can get in the UK, and we thought we were all done with this, and here we are again. And we've already gone through the first and second self-employment income support scheme grants and what's involved, and it's now been announced that there's a third and fourth grant available. And although you might get excited about that, the news ain't good. In fact, it's an absolute shambles in my view. I've been trying to be as impartial as I can about this, but it's not good. Later on, I'll take you through an example if you're making about £15,000 a year profit. So if you just run a very, very small business, you're a self-employed, I don't know, window cleaner or plumber or something like that, and you're making about £15,000 a year profits, I'll take you through an example of what you'll end up getting. I hate to say things are unfair on this channel, but this is desperately unfair. I'll cut to the chase. As far as I can work out, you're going to be getting about 60% of your earnings over the course of the year versus 80% if you were a furloughed employee. So yeah, it's not particularly good news for self-employed people. So I'll quickly show you how to find out about this grant first, because it's literally only just been announced. There's not very much detail about it. It's being portrayed in the media that it's an increase. I've seen some reports saying self-employment grant has increased from 40% to 80%. That's nonsense. The 40% was based on the assumption that we wouldn't be locked down. And yeah, if we're going to go back into full lockdown and you can't do any work, then too right it needs to go up. If you're being told by the government that you're not allowed to run your business, then of course the grant needs to go up. It needs to go way up from what's being provided at the moment. Remember, it's not your choice to shut the business down. It's the government who's telling you you have to shut your business down, so the government should be covering all of the money that your business has lost. And it's also not as simple as saying just shut it down for 3 months and switch it back on in 3 months' time. To me, that shows how massively naive a lot of people are about how businesses are run. I mean, if you run, for example, a catering business or something like that, you're going to be taking bookings maybe, 12 months in advance? Well, how many people are making bookings for 6 months in advance at the minute for, like, in the entertainment industry? The answer is zero. There's like a huge ripple effect of businesses that all rely on each other, and if you shut down one strain of the economy, you can't just switch on, for example, I mean, I know photographers, I think I might have mentioned before, photography businesses that have been literally decimated. That all of their business has gone overnight. These are businesses that have taken years and years to build up, and they are gone. They will take 2 or 3 years to get back to where they were before all of this started. It's not as simple as just saying, we'll provide the grant for 3 months and then you can just switch the business back on again. It doesn't work like that. Anyone who's been in business knows that. It takes, on average, I think 2 to 3 years to build a business up from scratch just to break even point. Never mind to get it actually profitable where you can draw a wage from the company. So don't give me the whole, oh, you can just switch the business back on in 3 months' time and everything will be fine. Anyway, I'll get down off my high horse. If you go to gov.uk and go to the coronavirus section again, scroll down to business and self-employed people, click on the bit that says getting financial help and keeping your business safe, then click on the bit that says self-employed people and sole traders, and then click on the thing that says claim a grant through the self-employed income support scheme. You can't claim the grant yet, by the way, so don't get your hopes built up. And then you should see a page that says policy paper, self-employment income support scheme grant extension. Now, as I say, this is very new, so I'm assuming they're going to make this a bit easier to find over the next couple of weeks. I don't know. And it says the grant is being extended from the 1st of November 2020. Find out if you're eligible and how much you can get. And this is the article that was published on the 24th of September 2020, but updated on the 2nd of November. And then what you need to do is open the policy document, because that's all we've got to go off at the minute. We've got no helpful guides as to what's going on here. I think this is absolutely appalling that we can be forced into lockdown in literally 3 days' time, and there is almost zero information about what small businesses are supposed to be doing to cope during that period of time. But hey, that's where we are. Once you're on that page, it says the UK government recognises the continued impact that the pandemic has had on the self-employed and has taken action to provide support. The Self-Employed Income Support Scheme grant extension provides critical support to self-employed in the form of 2 grants, each available for 3-month periods covering November to January and February to April 2021. So there's another 2 lockdown grants. You thought you were done with the first 2, but Who can claim to be eligible for the grant extension? Self-employed individuals, including memberships of partnerships, must have been previously eligible for the previous grants. You don't have to have claimed the previous grants, but you have to have been eligible for the previous grants. Now, I'm assuming that means they're still basing it on horrendously out-of-date tax returns. So that means we're basing it on transactions dating back to April 2018. That's right, folks. Your future is dependent on how much money you were making in April 2018, so 2.5 years ago. So if, like millions of business owners, you've been faithfully investing in your business, maybe spending your profits on taking on extra members of staff instead of paying yourself. So if you did that back in 2018 and the 2 tax years before that, and then in the following tax year, so April 2019, if your business started to become profitable and you could actually start paying yourself, well, guess what? You're going to get bugger all. Because as per usual, we're basing this on tax returns that are 2.5 years out of date. So awesome work there. And that in itself, I think, is inexcusable. We are getting very close to the January deadline for tax returns to be submitted for the 1920 tax year. I see no reason why we can't now take the 2019-2020 figures into account. Plenty of people will have already submitted their tax returns for that tax year. I think it should just go on the latest tax return that has been submitted. If people haven't submitted it yet, then so be it. If they have, then go off those figures. It's ridiculous basing these grants off profits that were made 2.5 years ago. Anyway, it goes on to say that you have to declare that you intend to continue to trade and either are currently actively trading but are impacted by reduced demand, whatever that means, or were previously trading but are temporarily unable to do so, which that is the case for a huge number of businesses who have literally just had to shut up shop. And by the way, that was even the case before this additional lockdown, because as I say, there's a whole chain of industries that depend on each other. And if you knock out the top level industry, like entertainments and the arts, for example, then that absolutely devastates a whole chain of businesses below that that are dependent on those industries. So even if the lower level businesses aren't technically locked down, all of their business is gone. As I say, I'm thinking like event caterers. I've heard a lot of bad things about like sound engineers, production companies, photographers, basically anything to do with weddings. The list goes on and on. I can't name them all here. This is going to be devastating for small business. We're not going to really hear about this until probably middle to back end of next year, when all of these businesses have completely run out of money and they haven't managed to build everything back up quickly enough. Anyway, what the grant extension covers. The extension will last for 6 months from November 2020 to April 2021. Now, this is an interesting one because we seem to be missing 2 months here. So let me just explain. The first grant was for March, April and May 2020, and that was for 80% of your trading profits up to a maximum of 7.5 grand. The second grant was for June, July and August, and that was for 70% of your trading profits up to a maximum of £6,570. We've then completely skipped September and October for some reason, and now we're looking at the third grant covering November, December and January. They're saying it's 80% for November, but the figures are kind of suggesting that it's averaging out to 55%. I'm presuming what they mean there, and it's not very clear, we'll go over that in a minute, but they're saying it's 80% for November, and then I'm assuming it's dropping down to 40%, which is what it was before they decided to go back into lockdown, and that kind of averages out at 55%. I'm not sure. This is where it all kind of falls apart, and it doesn't really make sense. But either way, they're saying 55% up to a maximum of £5,160. So we've completely skipped September and October. We'll ignore the fact that your business has been decimated and you've got no money coming in whatsoever, and you're on the verge of shutting down your business that you've been building up over the last 10 to 15 years. We'll just skip September and October and pretend they don't exist. Anyway, so it says grants will be paid in 2 lump sum instalments, each covering a 3-month period. The first grant will cover a 3-month period from 1st of November to the 31st of January 2021. It says the government will provide a taxable grant covering 55% of average monthly trading profits, paid out in a single instalment covering 3 months worth of profits and capped at £5,160 in total. Here's where we get the spin propaganda on the grant. The grant will be increased from the previously announced level of 40% of trading profits to 80%. Yeah, thanks very much. But that was before you decided to go back into lockdown and shut everything down. So yeah, too right it should go up. So don't pretend you're doing us some sort of favour increasing it from 40% to 80%. It was 80% on the original grant, on the first lockdown grant, it was 80%. And it's the same. So that's what it should say. It's the same grant as the first lockdown grant. And then it goes on to say, this therefore increases the total level of the grant from 40% to 55% of trading profits from 1st of November 2020 to 31st of January 20, and they've got a typo on that, brilliant, 31st of January 2021, that should say. But again, that's spin, because the 40% was based on us not being in lockdown. So what you're saying is we're going to get 55% for being in total lockdown, when on the first grant we got 80%. Make of that what you will. Then, here's the best bit. The government are providing broadly the same level of support for the self-employed as is being provided for employees through the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme in November due to its extension, and then the Job Support Scheme in December and January. Well, I must admit, I don't know a huge amount about the furlough scheme and all that sort of thing. As far as I'm aware, it's 80%. And I'm going to take you through an example to demonstrate why you are not going to get 80%. You're going to get closer to 60%. And not only that, it's 60% of your profits from the 18-19 tax year. So it's completely dismissing any income you made in the last tax year, which is absolutely abysmal. Base it on the tax return that's been filed. Plenty of people should have a 1920 tax return filed by now. I've done mine. I don't see why other people can't get theirs done. If your business has been shut down, you should have had plenty spare time to get a tax return done. And if you haven't done it for whatever reason, absolutely fine. Base it on the previous year instead. It's as simple as that. Just base it on the return that's been filed, not the one that started on the 6th of April 2018. Anyway, sorry. Deep breaths. Right, imagine you had a small business making about £15,000 a year, so £1,250 a month profit that you're making. So, you know, you're just about scraping past minimum wage at that kind of level. Plenty small businesses are trading around that level, if not well below it. But let's say £1,250 a month. And let's imagine, because of everything that's going on, your business has been decimated, like millions of self-employed businesses have been decimated. So for your first grant, you would have got £3,000. For your second grant, which is say 70% of your trading profits, you would have got £2,625. We'll brush over the whole September and October being completely missing. For your grant 3, as far as I can tell, you would get £2,062.50. That's based on the 55% number. And then for grant 4, you would get the same, but because we're doing it over a 12-month period, so I'm taking it March to March, just for argument's sake, because that's when the first grant started in March. We'll take this as a March to March year. So if you take 2/3 of the £2,062.50, that's £1,375. So that means for the 12-month period, you would have got a grant of £9,062.50. And that's based on having a normal income of £15,000. And that ain't 80%, that's about 60%. So what we're basically saying is if you're self-employed, suck it up, you're going to get 20% less than everyone else, and we're going to skip out 2 months where you're going to get nothing. I can only imagine the uproar there would have been if that had happened on the furlough scheme. It then goes on to say the second grant will cover a 3-month period from 1st of February 2021 up until the 30th of April. I'm laughing over the absolute ridiculousness of this entire situation. So it's going to cover 1st of February 2021 to the 30th of April 2021. I hope that doesn't mean that they're even considering staying in lockdown until then, because you might as well just say self-employed businesses don't exist anymore. The government will review the level of the second grant and set this in due course. So the second grant might not even be as high as 55%. So that's an interesting one, because I've read in the media that it's a 55% grant covering you for 6 months. So that's not necessarily the case. I reckon there's a reasonable chance it'll drop back down to the 40% for the grant number 4. We shall see. So it could potentially reduce your overall 60% even lower. If they did drop it to 40% for grant number 4, I'd need to do a bit of maths, but I'll show it on the screen what that means your overall grant would work out as. Anyway, it then goes on to say, section 3, how to claim. Basically, to cut a long story short, you can't claim until the 30th of November 2020, so don't bother contacting HMRC yet. I doubt they know themselves how this is all going to work, because at the minute it's an absolute shambles. We're basing this on tax returns that are 2.5 years out of date. It's absolute insanity. Anyway, that's where we are. It is what it is. If you genuinely think we're going to come out of lockdown on the 2nd of December and everything's going to go back to normal, let us know in the comments below. I'm not optimistic about that. Anyway, how is this going to impact your business? Let me know. I know there are businesses who were just about starting to get back on the feet again after the first lockdown, and this, I know for a fact that this is going to kill them. Their businesses are going to go under. There's no way they can handle another lockdown, and they were already on the verge of going bankrupt before that anyway. On the flip side, and just to try and, every cloud and all that, I know there are businesses that have done quite well out of this, but yeah, you've got to consider how many businesses and people can lose their jobs, and this won't all kick in until the middle of next year, before people don't have the money to spend at the businesses who are currently doing well, if that makes sense. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think. If I hear any more, I shall let you know. So don't forget to hit subscribe. Take care, folks. I shall see you next time. Tatty bye.